Welcome to the Rockabye Revenue Podcast with me, Abby Watson. I'm a mum of 4 and a business strategist, and I train people to become hypnobirthing teachers. In the last decade, I've built a thriving baby business that grew beyond my wildest dreams. This podcast is for you if you run a business or dream of running a business in the birth and baby industry. You want to change lives whilst making more money. I'm talking about creating sustainable income whilst being present for the people that matter most. I believe for our baby businesses to have the impact we desire, we must be rewarded. On this podcast, expect me to share actionable strategies without the jargon. I've been where you are. I've built a business while raising 4 little ones, and now I'm here to help you turn your passion into profit while creating the life you've always dreamed of. So let's get started. Hello, lovely one. I hope you are doing well. I'm sat in my office recording a few podcast episodes because I do like to batch a little, As you know, I am absolutely consistent with this podcast. I started this podcast, when did I start it? I'm 24, and it's weekly, and I've never missed a week. Being consistent with this podcast doesn't mean that I'm consistent, as in I'm not necessarily recording every week. Often when I sit down to record a podcast, I'll do a few at a time. And today when I sat down to record podcasts, I felt a little bit uninspired. And I sat down and I thought, what on earth can I talk about? Now, I've got 2 chairs in my little podcast recording area that I have set up because I want to make it as super easy as possible to get on and record podcasts. And I have this nice little round table with a nice little white ornament. And next to the white ornament, I have one of these coffee table books. And I've got to admit, I bought this coffee table book simply because of how pretty it looks and how it goes with the aesthetic. I didn't buy the book for its wonderful content. But as I was sat here feeling completely uninspired, I picked up the book and I thought, there's so much in this book that is so useful for building a baby business and a business in general, but particularly talking about birth and baby businesses. So this book, this coffee table book that I got from HomeSense, blooming love HomeSense, is called The Chanel Style Principles. Blooming gorgeous, eh? And it's all about how to dress, okay? No, don't worry. You don't have to turn the podcast off right now. I'm not here to educate anyone on how to dress. I'm really not. But as I picked up this book, there are so many quotes from Chanel herself that can really be taken forward into business. So I thought I would share some with you today. Let's have a talk about it. It says, in order to be irreplaceable, one must always be different. Now, ain't that true when it comes to business? Not necessarily in a really scary way where we must be so unusual or so us that, we're almost trying to be different, we're trying to be quirky, when maybe actually that isn't us. But it really reminds me of something that I say quite often on this podcast about being you, embracing who you are and knowing that that will be your USP. You might look at lots of people doing the same things as you. So whether you're a baby massage instructor, whether you teach hypnobirthing, whether you're a doula, whether you're a newborn photographer, and see people that, all look very similar, sharing the same canvas style posts, and you might think, oh my gosh, I too should be doing that. But actually, the thing that will attract people to you is you, your uniqueness. And I know when I say your uniqueness, you might be like, am I actually that unique? Yeah, of course you are. There are people that are your friends because you are not like the other people that they know. The people that love chatting to you when you arrive on the school run because of your vibe, your real humanness that nobody quite has. And when I look at people that I've trained to be hypnobirthing teachers that are really killing it, they're doing so well, it's not necessarily because of all the wonderful facts they share online. It's because of how they magnetize people with their warmth, their kindness, and simply their personality. They're not trying to be different. They're just allowing themselves to be them, the hypnobirthing teacher version of them. So there's that little reminder from Coco Chanel. I nearly said Coco Mademoiselle. I'm thinking of my perfume there. But from Coco Chanel, in order to be irreplaceable, one must always be different. Let me find another one. So I want to read you this bit. It's all about experimenting. Most importantly, it's about how you feel. Now, that is talking about wearing hats. But isn't this true for business too? It's also about experimenting. Like, as you listen to this podcast, and maybe you've listened to several episodes, I will suggest lots of things that you can do to grow your business. And it's about trying things, seeing if it works. And just like an experiment in terms of wearing something, we try it on, we see how we feel, we do it a few times and we see if it works for us. The same absolutely applies to business too. Now, thinking about this book that I just randomly picked up on my coffee table, Chanel, please hear me when I say I'm no expert in Chanel style, but I'm sure we can all agree there's a distinct look, there's a distinctness of Chanel that I can't even think of any other designers that have been able to replicate that real, recognisable look. If I think about Chanel, I think of those kind of boxy button-down suits. I think of pearls. I think of monochrome. I think of nice textures. I think of smartness and sophistication. I think of simple elegance. Now, why am I talking about this? Not because, I need us all to go buy some Chanel. Well, wouldn't that be nice? What I'm wanting us to think about here is branding. Why is Chanel one of the most recognisable brands in the world? Because it's so distinct. It doesn't move away from those kind of foundations of the monochrome, of the clean lines, of the pearls. It doesn't suddenly think, hey, let's go for a graffiti look. It stays on brand, and it has throughout the years so that it's recognisable. And here's the thing that we need to learn from that, especially in this online world where people are filled with promos from different businesses. And when, people want to book a service and they probably view, several websites before they make their decision. We want to stand out. We want to be memorable. We want people to see our thing pop up and know it's from us without necessarily seeing our face. So whilst in this world of like it being easier than ever to create lovely graphics, there's something powerful in sticking to simple, to choosing something, whether it's your branding colours, whether it's a font that you use, and sticking with it. That's not boring, that's being recognisable. So I'm sure, you know, Chanel as a brand doesn't think, oh my gosh, I'm just so bored of the pearls now. You know, I'm so bored of the, you know, monochrome, black and white, boring. No, because that's what makes them recognisable. Now, also when I think about Chanel as a brand, we all know there are lots of similar things out there that we kind of recognise as Chanel, but we know they're knockoffs. You know, we might buy like a nice cardigan from M&S and we'd be like, oh, I feel very Coco Chanel in this. But it's not the real deal. And that's the thing about business too, isn't it? And this absolutely can happen as your business grows and becomes more successful, that there will be people that copy or are so inspired by you that what they end up creating is freakishly similar. You know, you may see a social media post and you're like, actually, that's pretty much my post, bar a few subtle tweaks. Is that my branding? Bar a few subtle tweaks. That happens. It does happen. It's happened to me. It will happen to me in the future. But what I know is as much as people can copy, people can replicate, people can be so inspired that they're not even noticing that what they produce is practically a carbon copy of what we produce. They can never be us. And if you are ever in a position where there is someone out there that seems to be observing what you're doing and seems to be copying, I know it can hit you hard. I know it can make us feel like, oh my gosh, my business is doomed because somebody is trying to steal it by copying us. They can't. They can't take what you've produced. Because although they can be inspired what you do, and they can maybe try and do a very similar thing, they haven't got what's in your head now, you know, for your next idea. They haven't got what's coming soon. They haven't got the thing that led you to doing it in that way in the first place. So although they might be able to replicate the surface level thing, they haven't got the full package. And that's what I want you to remember when you do see people replicate. And my goodness, if you see that happening, take a little moment to think, oh, you know, a bit like Coco Chanel, people are copying me because I'm doing big things. And take it as your moment to be like, wow, I'm giving myself a pat on the back, actually, that someone thinks what I'm doing is so good that they've actually been super inspired by it. Now, hear me when I say I'm definitely not saying that, you know, ignore like copyright or don't challenge things if people have literally ripped off your words. There is protection for that. But what I'm saying is don't let it eat away at your drive. Don't let it make you feel that someone's coming in and bulldozing everything and taking away what you have created just because they've produced something similar. No one's you, lovely. And just like, anyone can produce a black and white monochrome cardigan, nobody can be Coco Chanel. As always, lovely, take care and keep on changing lives. Bye. Thank you for listening to Rockabye Revenue. I hope this episode has left you with some fresh ideas and bundles of motivation. If you enjoyed this episode, do make sure you click subscribe so you never miss an installment. And if you found this episode useful, I'd love you forever if you leave a 5-star review, helping this podcast reach the ears of more of the helpers in this world. And remember, keep changing lives. See you next time.